You're about to watch me read The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. I have pretty high expectations for this book, especially because when I went to buy it, it was sold out and I had to wait like an extra 2 weeks before I was even able to get my copy. So there's like a lot of high demand, and I've seen a lot of really great reviews for this book. And it's honestly some of my favorite things all wrapped up into one. And those two things are time travel romances. I love time travel romances so much, and from my understanding, that's what this book is. So from what I've gathered, this book is basically that time travel has been discovered, and our main character has a job as the bridge, and the bridge's job is basically to help these people from the past understand how to adapt to the modern world. And so from what I guess, she falls in love with the guy from the past, and while she's trying to help him adjust to the modern world. And so I'm really excited to read this book. So let's crack this book right open. But wait, we know the drill. This is a hardcover and the dust covers always come off before I read them. So let's see what's underneath, if there is anything. I really like the color of this one, the black and the blue. I think it just really works really well. It's good vibes. All right, let's read the book for real now.
Somebody know me better. I thought that I would miss her more, but I wake up and I feel better. Cause I let somebody go. We've been going on forever. There's no more crying on the floor. And she said it's now or never. So I let somebody go. Ooh. I let somebody go. Ooh. Let somebody go. Ooh.
I'm a little bit more than 100 pages into The Ministry of Time, and here are my thoughts so far. I don't think I'm a big fan of this particular type of writing style, where it kind of feels like a journal, but it's also not a journal, and it feels like it's on that line between it's telling you more than it's actually showing you anything, and I always just find that really hard to get behind. In some parts of this book, it feels like I'm reading more like a science textbook than an actual like story, which has kind of like confused me, but it is also woven in with like real historical facts and stuff that did happen that I had no idea about because I don't know anything about British history. But yeah, so I'm kind of learning about history at the same time while I'm reading this book, but it's definitely not what I expected it to be. I expected it to be kind of like a cheesy little romance story, but it seems more like a mystery kind of story with writing that I'm not too fond of, to be honest, but I'm interested enough about like what the government is doing in this book to want to read more. However, something that's really interesting about this book is that the main character doesn't have a name. Every single time that it mentions the main character, it's from her point of view, and nobody says her name. The only times where her name is ever referenced is when she goes, oh, somebody pronounced it properly, but it's like you don't actually know what her name is. And I wonder if that's because this whole thing is like this high level of security government kind of like setting. And so I wonder if that's intentional, that you don't know the character's name because it's kind of in that diary format without actually being a diary format, if you know what I mean. And it's very like confidential. And so I think that that's pretty interesting, and I think that that's intentional. So I think that's kind of cool. I've never really read a book where you don't know who the main character is, like what their name is or anything. So that's pretty cool. But again, it's the writing style, and like there's a lot of characters, but you don't really know much about them, that I'm just like, eh. So basically where I'm at in the story right now, our main character, who doesn't have a name, is working for the ministry, and the ministry has this new kind of section set up, which is the Ministry of Time. And so they've created these like doors that are able to go and extract people from the past, and the way to not ruin the future is to extract people who were supposed to die, and that way they're not messing up any like big events if they were to take somebody who does something big and like makes all these changes to the world. And so people who were supposed to die, they just kind of grab them right before they die and then kind of get them into the world to help modernize them and get them to understand stuff. There's like a bunch of tests, but there seems to be some really hidden agenda underneath it all. And so I think that that's interesting. That's the part that I'm like, the most interested about. I know it's a romance book, but there isn't really any romance in there yet. So this is definitely a slow burn kind of story, which I don't mind slow burns. But yeah, so that's kind of like what's going on. Our main character is kind of like a roommate for this guy who was a commander, and her job is pretty much to like be his friend and kind of teach him and get him used to the world, and then also bring him over to like the tests that he needs to take and psychological assessments, and meet him with the other people who are like him, were pulled from their timelines as well. So there's a lot of interesting moving pieces in the book, and I am very excited to see like where it's going to go. Even if I'm not really that fond of the writing style and don't think it's that good, the story itself is interesting enough that I want to know what happens, and it might be one of those books that once you finish it, you reflect on it and you're like, that was pretty good. But I'm not sure yet, so I will continue to read, and I'll update you either at the halfway point or a little bit more towards the end, because this book isn't too big. So I will see you then. So I'm almost done The Ministry of Time, and I think this book has been overhyped. I haven't finished it yet, but it's not what I expected it to be at all. The book is marketed as a romance time travel book, but there's not really any romance or time travel. Like, honestly, nothing's really happened in the book that much. There's like some kind of mystery about like what the government is up to, but like everything has just been like nothing, if that makes sense. And it's the writing style that's really hard for me to get behind as well. Like, there's way too much telling, not enough showing. I think there are some really great opportunities to like show some cool stuff, but then it's just like skipped over. These are done in like kind of diary entry styled paragraphs, and it feels like it's trying a little bit too hard to be poetic with the amount of metaphors in this book. It's like every second sentence is a metaphor, and it's kind of starting to grate on my nerves, to be honest. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to this book being done, to be honest. Yeah, honestly, not much has happened. The romance has kind of happened, but I don't really feel the romance. There's like no chemistry between the characters. I actually would have found the main character had better chemistry with the character Margaret than anything else, and I thought maybe that's where it was going, but yeah, the romance just, yeah, this isn't doing it for me, but I'm gonna finish the book, of course. I am almost done. I got less than 100 pages left, so I will update you with my final thoughts, and who knows, maybe the last 100 pages will change my thoughts. So I just finished The Ministry of Time, and unfortunately I didn't really enjoy this book. I think for me it was the writing style that really just, I didn't really mesh with. It kind of felt, and I understand like what the author is trying to do with it. It's supposed to be very like poetic. It's supposed to be kind of a mishmash of like old-timey writing and modern day writing fused together, as well as it's kind of written as if the character in the book is doing some sort of like diary entries, is kind of the way I got it, because a lot of them were very like paragraph parts, and then a break, and then paragraph, and then a break, etc., etc., all done in like 10 chapters. So I think that there was a very like artistic kind of method that the author went for in this book, especially with the use of the different metaphors, the different similes, all of that throughout the entire book. However, for me, I didn't really like that writing style, even though I really tried to get behind it. But it's the same thing I have with like really old books. Like when I read Dracula, it's really hard for me to get into that style of writing. And I think maybe that's just a me problem. The book itself, I didn't really like any of the characters either. And I think I liked Maggie and Arthur the most. They were the side characters. And our main character, who doesn't have a name, I grew to just not like her at all as the story progressed. I don't know like what it was, but I was always just like a little bit indifferent. But as it continued, I was just like, I just don't like her. I don't I don't really care about her or her story or really anything that's happening. I felt like the relationship that she had with Graham Gore wasn't that well done. I don't think there was really any chemistry. At some point she was referring to him as like an overgrown son. And so I don't know, like the fact that she saw him kind of like as a son and then she ended up like wanting to be with him, I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And as well, there was no tension, there was no build-up, there was nothing really, like literally no hints that he even liked her or that she really liked him until suddenly she was like, oh, he's like kind of interesting, I can't stop thinking about him, and then she's obsessed with him. So I wouldn't really call it a romance. I think that she was just obsessed with him. And although I really appreciated all of the complex themes throughout the book, like colonization and racism and feminism and kind of not looking like your heritage, I don't know the correct term for that, please let me know in the comments what that is called. But there are a lot of really great themes throughout the book, but they felt very random. Like I felt like they just kind of popped up here and there. It kind of felt like you were suddenly reading somebody's like poem, and then it goes back to the story, and then they go into this big like tangent about like the themes of the book, and then it kind of jumps to something different. And I found that that was pretty common. Like I found the writing itself was very awkward and very clunky, and the pacing itself wasn't very good. There was no good flow to it. The rhythm of it just, it felt very like throughout the entire thing, which made it really hard to just sit down and like actually read the book. Most of the time, when you have a really good flow to a book, you don't really feel like you're reading. But for me, I felt like this book, I was reading it and like reminded myself that I was reading it instead of just being taken away with it. And I think my biggest qualm with this book was definitely that it was marketed as a romance book, but romance was the subplot. That's like saying Stormlight Archive is a romance book. It has romance in it, but that doesn't make it a romance book. If this was marketed as a time travel spy thriller, I think that would have been more realistic than a time travel romance, because all the marketing, even the blurb on the back, really talked and hyped about how this book is you find your soulmate from another century. And so I really thought that was what the story is about, but the story wasn't about that. It wasn't even really about time travel. It was just people from different time periods, and they kind of just slice of lifed it. And then the last, like, I don't know, 60 pages or so, it suddenly became this like spy thriller, which it was like a little bit hinted at towards like when we met last time about talking about this book. And then it became a spy thriller. And I would say like the last, like I mentioned, 60 or so pages were actually the best of this entire book. I thought that those were written well. It had good tension. It had some good reveals. And it worked. It worked really well. But everything else, like, I don't know, it just didn't hold up for me. And even the romance scenes they didn't really hold up for me either, because every single one of these scenes, anytime something is about to happen, you're being told all of the stuff that's going to happen. And then it just goes to the next part. And it's like, oh, but I thought we were going to see this. Like, I thought we were going to see them be together. I thought we were going to see them experience the modern world together. But it just kind of tells you, like, this is what we talked about. This is what we saw. This is what this character's reaction was to that. And so, again, I don't know if it's because of that writing style, but I just had a lot of trouble with it, because when I was starting to get excited about, oh, we're going to see something, it just skips to the next part and tells you what happened instead of showing you what happened. Another thing that I noticed was the use of very interesting words. So I don't have a problem with it. I like the really complex words that were used throughout the book. I thought that was cool. I don't know if everybody in the world, if you're just starting to read this book, if everyone in the world is like knows what those words mean. So I don't know, maybe I'm just like overthinking it, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting like complex word that you don't really see often. I think I worry that people might have to like Google what some of the words mean, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm not saying everybody is like that. Like myself, and I'm sure like thousands and thousands of other people like know what those words are, but I don't know, it just felt like the words were overly complex for no reason. I really wanted to like this book. I really did. I was so excited about this book as well, and like it sold out, and I was like, oh, like I'm gonna have to wait even longer to get this book. And I talked about it constantly. Literally everybody I know is like aware of this book because I was just so excited for it. I wonder if that's part of like why I didn't enjoy the book as much, because I had such high expectations. And then again, I thought it was like a time travel romance and it was marketed as that, but it wasn't that. And so I think that tied with the clunky writing, not meeting the expectations that was promised to me, is what made it like a lot harder for me to read the book. And I don't know, I think I'm having bad luck this month with books. There's like, I feel like I've never had so many like books that I haven't really enjoyed in the span of 1 month. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know who in the book universe I've angered, but please, please give me a 5-star book, even a 4-star. Like, I don't want to be the mean character. I don't want to be the mean person about saying these negative things about books. It makes me feel bad. So I will be awarding the Ministry of Time a total of 2 stars. I was debating between 1 or 2, and I think I'm gonna give it 2 because the last part of the book, like I mentioned, it was fun, it was well done. I actually did like the ending of it too. I like that it was ambiguous. I like that the main character doesn't have a name. And I like that you don't really know what's gonna happen. Like, what is the future going to be like for these characters? I think that that's cool. I also think that if you like this type of writing style and you know going into it that it's like a thriller spy book but with not much substance, then maybe you will like it. Like, it wasn't for me, but I'm not saying that it's like a bad book. I just wasn't a fan of it. It was just hard for me to get into it and actually care about it. And again, I think it's because of the false marketing claims of this book. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm definitely open to hearing though, like if you love this book, I would love to know why, because like maybe there's something I missed. I don't know. So the next book that I will be reading is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. And what I'm really excited about this one is that I actually met Carly Fortune and she signed my book. So that's pretty cool. So I'm really excited to read this one. I read Meet Me at the Lake by her as well. And what I really enjoyed about it was the Canadian representation. It was a really good brain cleanser book. It's obviously not like the best book in the entire universe. Like, it's no Brandon Sanderson, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. And so this one, it actually sounds even better. So I gave Meet Me at the Lake 3 stars. I'm expecting this book to be a 4-star. Hopefully the book universe is happy with me now and they're gonna start giving me a bunch of nice, happy, good books that I thoroughly enjoy. So yeah, I'm really excited to start reading this one. It has a beautiful cover. I love it. It takes place in PEI. Makes me want to eat mussels and lobster, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's what I'll be reading next. So if you're interested in watching me read This Summer Will Be Different, or Brandon Sanderson, or Emily Henry, or Ellie Hazelwood, I have so many books that I need to read now. And if any of those sound interesting to you, definitely hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and turn on the bell notification. That way you get notified anytime a new video comes out. If you enjoyed this video and you're excited to see the next one, definitely hit the like button and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!